So, guys, today we're going to be talking about Team USA in the Olympics, and we're going to be talking about the viewership numbers of the Olympic final. I do apologize again about the lighting. I do apologize a lot about that. I am sorry. I'm in my parents' house. I apologize about being small on the camera. My laptop is quite far away from me. I can try to pull it closer, but that's not going to... Can I pull it closer? I think I can pull it a bit closer, maybe. That might be a bit better. My laptop, it's also not my good laptop, so I got to make use for the setup. But Team USA women's basketball teams win over France on Sunday, drew 7.8 million viewers on NBC and Peacock. That's for an early start. The game peaked at 10.9 million viewers. And also in France, in French TV, there were 6.47 million, which meant one thing. I think this is the most viewed women's basketball game in another country ever. I would guess it is. But also, actually no, if China have ever been to the final, that probably is the most viewed. But this was not a terrible viewership. Not great either. It was the least viewed Olympic final for Team USA since 2008. So the last 4 Olympics have been more viewed, including the one where no one watched anything in Tokyo, but it wasn't terrible. It was not terrible. It was on NBC and Peacock, so obviously it was on the main networks, but it was not terribly viewed. It was realistically no differently viewed than before. So the boycott very clearly didn't work. Especially, obviously there was ain't no boycott in France. French people wanted to see their team win the damn Olympics, especially because it was the last event. And the women's basketball did have the inflated numbers because it was the very last event of the Olympics. It was shown on RTE, it was shown on BBC, so it was shown on all these channels, didn't really show much basketball because it was like the very final event of the Olympics. So it's on every TV channel who has Olympic TV coverage anyway. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's unbelievably highly viewed. So the boycott clearly didn't work. The people saying they were going to boycott was probably in the low tens of thousands, which in the grand scheme of things is nothing. But I think it is also fair to say that this was just your normal Team USA. That with the increased growth in the WNBA, with the increased growth in women's basketball, especially domestically in America, that growth is predicated on Angel Reese, on Caitlin Clark, more so the latter, and the college teams. There's a reason why. Said Iowa versus South Carolina drew 18.9 million, which is up from 15 million or something for Iowa versus UConn. I think it was 12 or 13 million. Iowa LSU, when it was 10 million the year before. Iowa LSU. I think also there were more viewers for the Iowa South Carolina game last year than in this game right here. So it still is a case where the growth of women's basketball is very much reliant on these few players. And what I will say is that the continual growth of the sport is not going to be purely based on them. The sport will not continue to grow. It will not continue to grow because eventually the Caitlin Clark mania dies. Eventually, the mania around this college basketball, eventually it dies. So they've got to be... people have got to come in and stick to watching WNBA for reasons. Whether that reason is they want to watch Aja, they want to watch Stewie, they want to watch Breanna, whatever their reason is, the new fans that come in will have to stick there. And I think for the prolonged growth, it's going to be on everybody. But I also don't necessarily agree that Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark were just jumping on a bandwagon that was there. They created their own thing. They went to a slightly growing league and boomed it into the oblivion, especially Caitlin Clark. But to act like there's no viewership growth from Angel Reese is completely lying as well. And to a lesser extent, like a Cameron Brink or as great as Rickea Jackson is, no one's watching games for Rickea Jackson. But it's going to be very interesting to see the reaction. And the funniest part is that for people saying they thought no one was going to watch, these finals draw 8 to 12 million every single time. Not peak viewers, but 8 to 12 million average, no matter what. And for people saying, oh, it was only a time zone issue, that's the reason why. In 2012, there's even I'm pretty sure there's an even bigger time zone issue between London, or there's this, what am I talking about? There's a 1 area between London and Paris. And the 2012 one had some of the highest viewership. So, yeah, I will say that it's good to see that the boycott was bullshit. It's good to see that there was the boycott. Even if there was one, it didn't do anything, because it would have been kind of sad to see it work. And then it's like, if it worked, it would show that there is no not even that there's no growth, that there's no actual like appetite for women's basketball. It's just for one specific player. And if you're watching this channel purely for Caitlin Clark stuff, great. I'll talk about it. But as someone who basically, my full-time job right now is effectively reporting on this league, it's a big thing for me. It's a big thing for a lot of people that are watching the league, that more people are watching the leagues. It's better to talk about when more people care. So I do think that, yeah, it's obviously not a sustainable model for the WNBA. It's not a sustainable model for anyone, including Caitlin Clark herself, if people are only watching Caitlin Clark. Like, the reality is that when there's a perfect storm of people wanting to watch a sport and then a transcendent star in said sport, and then people watching the sport in other way, for other reasons, and then coming to continually watch that transcendent star, it works out better for all parties when everyone's succeeding. It'll work out better for Caitlin Clark herself. It's going to work out better for the other players. They're going to earn more money because of Caitlin Clark. And then Caitlin Clark's also going to earn more money. The bigger the WNBA is, the more money Caitlin Clark earns. The bigger Caitlin Clark is, the more money the WNBA earns. It is a situation where both parties will benefit from each other. And the same when you can replace Caitlin Clark with Sabrina Ionescu and Asia Wilson, or Breanna Steward, or an Angel Reese, who are obviously not at the star power of a Caitlin Clark, but it still is the same thing. The bigger the stars are, the better, more money the league earns. And the more money the league earns and the more people watching the league, the bigger the stars become. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. It's not concerningly low viewership, but it's also not high. But what is very high is the 9.3 million peak and 6.47 average viewers in France for basketball. Like, France, if you know anything about France, basketball is not their most popular sport. It's not even close to their most popular sport. And, like, this is how unpopular it is. Like, I watched Matthew Strazel play in a street ball tournament. There was about 20 fans there. Strazel was on the damn Olympic team. I watched him and a bunch of other guys playing in like some street ball tournament last summer, and nobody showed up to watch. Like, it is nowhere near as popular as some other sports, and to see 6.47 million people in France with a much lower population and with basketball being less relevant was incredible. Absolutely incredible.